So, hello, anybody who's out there. My name is Sydney Winston. Welcome to the channel. We're having a look at the. We're having a look at the situation that is that has unfolded in the Atlantic Ocean. We are. Who thinks that music is annoying? Yeah, me too. So we are following the fate of the Titan submersible, which has been lost at sea at this point. More and more, as I think about it, as I watch other experts, other opinions, I'm starting to. I'm starting to become a bit biased in favor of an implosion. In other words, it's over. So at this point, because let me go with 100% certainty that it's an implosion. Okay, just because I just want to do that. I want to follow the BBC and follow the news and see how long they take until they say, well, it doesn't matter about the oxygen because it's an implosion, or even after they don't find it after the oxygen runs out. I hope they at least say that implosion is extremely possible, because it seems to me that that is the best answer when the preponderance of the evidence, when all the facts that are for sure factual, when they're or when I did my little, what do they call it, internal critique of what happened to the submarine. What caught my attention was somebody talking about the thickness of the microcarbon or something or other, that is the shell, or some or part of the shell, or the shell, which was something like a unit of 5. I don't know what, 5 millimeters, or maybe it wasn't 5 millimeters, but the unit was 5, which was below the recommended minimum unit or thickness of 7. So this is what's on my mind from purely engineering, mechanical, science, physics perspective. It looks to me like this little baby is gone, is kind of bye bye already, which is really too bad. So I haven't even connected the BBC up yet, so let me do that. And now the reason that I left the title up there as less than 20 hours of oxygen is because of what I'm going to show you. Where did I go? What happened to me? Oh, I was blocking something, or something was blocking me. All right, so oh yeah, I've just got to make sure that I've got enough resources here, and not too many windows open. You know what happens when you got windows open. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out. I don't want to embarrass you or myself by showing you what I've got open. Because it looks like I'm doubling up on something. All right, I think I've got it figured out. If you just give me a... There we go. I'm actually looking for something specific. Again, always do this. Yes, something specific. Could be that one. All right. Okay. The waiting time is all over now, I think. Yes. Okay. Here we go. So why did I call it less than 20 hours of oxygen to go now and in the previous broadcast? Because the BBC still says, and this is, I just refreshed it, the crew are thought to have less than 20 hours of oxygen left based on a previous estimate. So I guess they underestimated it previously, and now they are making up for it, or trying to make us feel better again. So, okay, I'll just read this quick headline here. The sounds may not be from Titan, the sounds that they heard, which is very possible, especially considering if it's imploded already. It's quite amazing that, you know, we were all focused in on the banging on the hour, on the half hour for 3 minutes, all focused in on that, not realizing that submarine was it probably imploded at the 1 hour and 45 minute mark. So they're listening for something which doesn't exist. Tom has arrived into the chat room, so I'm going to bring him in on the screen anyway. So let me get rid of that and bring old Tom in over here. Okay, what does Tom say? Tom says that submarine should have a continuously pinging speaker that would run for months. They can easily make an eroding connection to a flotation device I'm not sure what the rest of it means. The way to play brought it back. Yeah, I can't disagree with whatever you said there, Tom. But yeah, they don't have they don't even have a pinger for if they when they reach the surface, if they or a transponder, I guess it's called. They don't have anything on there that'll ping if they're on the surface. Nothing. So that's an oversight. It's a harsh and unforgiving environment down there. The Titanic lies within a region called the Midnight Zone, known for its freezing temperatures and perpetual darkness. So, as we understand it, the sub was on its way on its 2-hour journey down to the Titanic when at an hour and 45 minutes it lost contact on its way. So it was going down. It was still submerging at I guess at some kind of a steep angle. That must be something to see, though. Imagine it, right? If you've got bright enough lights, I guess this thing would have had to have enough electricity to power big lights, big powerful. Otherwise, you won't be able to see anything about of the Titanic. People who have taken part in previous expeditions on the Titan have described descending for more than 2 hours in pitch black conditions before finally hitting the ocean floor, like suddenly. Right, because the Titanic itself is lying at the bottom of a trench. So, you know, the sea the sea floor is flat, 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 and then pew, it just falls, and then there's this trench, which is where the Titanic fell in. The submersible's lights offer it a limited line of sight, but nothing beyond a few meters. First responders will now have to battle these conditions as the search continues. Yeah, Tom, I agree with you. There in some engineering issues. There's some safety issues. Cutting of corners issues. I don't. It's not looking good for the. It's looking more like an implosion, and I'm going to go with the implosion. Now the question, Tom. I don't know if you know this, but I got a question. If if the submersible implodes, what actually is left of it? Does it implode and then fragment, or does it implode into one small piece? What actually happens, or does it? Is there some kind of a energy release? I would think there would have to be, although that implosion is some kind of, I don't know. I want to know from a scientist what is left after an implosion of the submersible. Who has the answer to that one? So you say that retail components are not made to push the boundaries of engineering. These things are extremely high tolerance and no margin for error. That's correct. You're going down 4,000 meters to the bottom of the ocean. You better have a vehicle that's not going to cause problems, because of the amount of pressure as you go. Oh man, it would be just a horrible thing. Just think about it imploding. We considered the implosion hypothesis in my previous broadcast in number 3. I think this is number 4. And I feel heavy-hearted in that. In my mind, it's imploded. To be thinking about the welfare of the people inside it and what they could be doing and how they could be managing and all this kind of stuff is, I think, just pipe dreams, because if it's imploded, they're all dead. Yeah, you're right. So this was basically the last the last post by BBC, and it is headlined, "What is it like in the deep ocean?" And we heard all about it. Harsh and unforgiving, more similar to outer space than life on Earth. Not looking good, and scary as hell. My goodness. Holy crap. Sometimes sometimes I wish my mind wouldn't process things so in so much detail and in slow fucking motion. Every time I I am presented with something brutal, horrific, and violent, whether it's I see it in real life or on video, or if I hear about it, or more than if I see, if I get a graphic of it, of something really heinous that people have done, then I go through this slow motion thinking from the point of view of the victim, also from the point of view of the object that is, that furnishes the killing blow. So we got Tom and Adam. Hey guys, welcome back, Adam. So what do you say? They're reduced to fish food, or their oxygen is almost gone. Rest in peace. Yeah. Who's most likely to survive if it didn't implode longest? The 19-year-old? If it didn't implode, I'd say the father and son took on the other three, killed them with box cutters, and are now on their way in the submersible at full speed ahead towards Afghanistan, which is where they will land. They will land in the harbor of Kabul to a cheering crowd of worshippers of the heroes that have just arrived with Western technology. So if you're sailing around the harbor on your boat, on your yacht, if you're sailing around the Kabul harbor right now, wait, stay, be prepared for a spectacle. Shako is here. Hi, Shako. The vessel now resembles a buckyball. What is that? A molecule of carbon-60. Is that what that means? I don't know what that means. I don't know what a buckyball is. I don't know what a C60 is. And if it is carbon, I don't know what carbon-60 is. Can you please elaborate? Thank you. They all seem kind of like the same size or body. What are you talking about? They seem like the same size or body frame. What does? It's imploded. So I just want to know what's left after implosion. What's the outcome? If that vessel implodes, C60 is known as a buckyball. Well, I'm glad to know that, but I am none the wiser. A carbon-60 molecule. Oh, okay, all right. Now I get it in terms of the chemistry, carbon-60, but I don't know what carbon-60 really is. Sorry. No, I don't think that there's anything going on in the submersible because it's crushed. So it's kind of small and small and round, like a little ping pong ball. This little ping pong ball bouncing along the seabed at the bottom of a trench. Okay, you know what? The world is now ready for something. Having lost this submersible and having lost 5 explorers, we are now going to be ready for when we lose a spaceship or a capsule carrying crew, live crew in space, because the law of statistics. No, there's no law of statistics. Statistically, there will be a crew loss in space at some point. Just like statistically, a submersible is going to implode at the bottom of the ocean. Statistically. Tom, if a gasket or valve fails, does it implode? Or just do all the bolts just let go? Alright, Adam, could have been like Thunderbirds and there's a secret hole in the ocean. Aliens are among us. I want evidence. I want evidence. Things, people vanishing happens all too much. Remember Malaysian Airlines MH170, which disappeared in the southern part of the southern hemisphere of Australia, like in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where there's just nothing and nobody, no land. So there's an example of how we have been conditioned to processing and dealing with a plane full of passengers getting lost in the ocean and never being found, like MH170. It's been what, 5 to 9 years? I don't know. It's a long time. And now we've got this submersible lost in the ocean. If it does implode, will it be found? So it's just interesting to watch when there are spokespeople talking to the microphone, talking to the crowd, and updating without saying, sorry, the submersible most likely has imploded. We are now have switched to a recovery mission. Like, when are they going to actually say that? They've switched to a recovery. Are they going to hold out all the way through tomorrow morning? Relatively speaking, that is tomorrow morning, relative to 8:30 currently my time, in 8:30 p.m. Elon Musk said there are going to be people that died trying to retro land on Mars. Yeah, thinking of that, one of these guys went up in our space, and yes, he went up. One of these guys has been up in space. I think he went on the Stephen Hawking's rocket, or the Stephen Hawking's type up in space journey. But the amazing thing, it's now 26 minutes since the last BBC Live update. And they're still headlining it with new noises heard. Look at this. Big headline. New noises heard as Titanic sub search widens. This is from the Coast Guard. And then this little subheading here. New noises heard in the Titanic sub search. They've got nothing to add. Tom used to work in a 800-pound PSI pressurized steam in a boiler. I was told that if the gasket failed and I walked through it, it was invisible and it would cut my legs off like an invisible precious steam of pressure, very very thin but very very pressurized, so like a laser. Is that what you mean? That would be that would be something, wouldn't it? Yeah, laser pressured steam. That's what I thought. That's what I thought you said. I'm still stunned that they still say less than 20 hours of oxygen. You know what? I I I finished my last broadcast when there was 19 hours of oxygen left. And then I went and I spent some time, with the dogs, hours actually with the dogs. And now I come back and there's still less than 20 hours of, well, I guess, 10 minutes is less than 20 hours of oxygen left. But, let's have a little bit of responsible reporting. I think I think that the media is preparing us for the bad news. That's honestly what I believe. And the bad news being that, meaning that at this point in my estimating, my assumptions, in my presumptions, is that the little submersible has gone imploded. I don't know what sound an implosion makes. But there is something I do want to share with you. This is breaking news, straight out of Jerusalem, Israel. Okay? Jesus is killed. Jesus killed by Israeli state forces in Palestine. This is big, ladies and gentlemen. This is big. So what happened, according to Barry Purcell, the reporter? So international press agencies are reporting that due to a tragic case of mistaken identity, the second coming of Jesus Christ was shot dead in the West Bank on Friday. The IDF regrets shooting Jesus, said an Israeli army spokesman. In our defense, the dove he was holding looked just like a grenade from 500 yards away. Also, he was dressed like an Arab. The second coming had appeared in Ramallah before thousands of Palestinians who were part of a protest over the attacks on the Al-Aqsa Mosque this week by Israeli troops. No one knows if Jesus shared the views of the protesters or happened to get caught up in the clashes. We were understandably skeptical when we heard the news, said Cardinal Luigi Asserolinini. He leads the Vatican Miracle Verification Committee. However, we sent a team out there and did a DNA test. I can confirm that the body definitely, without a doubt, belongs to the Jesus Christ we all know and love. After internal pressure, a 10-second phone call from Joe Biden, the IDF agreed to a 6-hour hiatus in attacking unarmed civilians to allow Christians to take away their remains. Nice, huh? The real question is where we go from here, said Asserolinini. We have a round-the-clock armed team guarding the morgue, but who knows what we can expect on Sunday morning. Bad move, Israel. You shot. You shot the. You shot the only thing that a Christian reveres. A dead Jesus is, no. There's no Christianity. So yeah, Jesus killed, eh? So yeah, that sucks. Well, anyway, there's no Christianity anymore. What are we going to ridicule? There's going to have to be something to ridicule now that Christianity is pretty much done for. I mean, I don't care. I don't mind that Jesus is killed because I think Jesus is a fucking crazy psychopath, and the Israelis obviously recognize it. I mean, who knows crazy psychopaths better than the IDF, who have to mow them down every time they pop up. So yeah, I don't know what the Christians are going to do now, but they're pretty good at fighting amongst themselves without Jesus. So they're probably just carrying on. They probably don't even won't even have read the news that Jesus has been killed. The second coming of Jesus has been killed. I don't commiserate with any other Christians that their God, obviously as fallible as he has to be in order to be killed in Palestine, of all places. But good on the IDF for recognizing the danger, the extreme danger that the Christians, Jesus Christ, represents. So go IDF. I wonder what the chat's got to say about that. All right, let's start with Adam. The BBC News have barely posted or updated anything all night. I'm not sure how live the updates are. Well, that's the thing, right? It's supposed to be live. They say they're live. But are they live? Let's see. This is their live reporting. And I'm gonna, how about if I refresh? Okay, still live reporting, still new noises, blah 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 blah. And the last post is still, what it's like in the ocean and stuff. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Anyway, let's go back to the chat. Shako, I'm guessing he not only was dressed like an Arab, but looked like an Arab, meaning he was Sephardic, like we suspected all along. P.S. He's not dead, he's just pining. He's pining for the Jerusalem forest. But you know what? You know what the rumor is, eh? You know the rumor, right? The rumor is that Jesus is not pining for the forest. He's not pining for the cedars of Lebanon. He's pining for the fjords of Norway. Why would Jesus pine for the fjords of Norway? I'll tell you why. Because Jesus hails from Norway. Jesus is the second coming of the Viking gods. But now the Israelis, the IDF has killed them in Ramallah. Too bad. I guess history will have to reflect something else. Can you imagine in 1,000 years when people are looking back at history? And they're looking back at this period of time. I mean, what we've experienced in our lifetimes, considering I've been fairly conscious since of what's happening around me since I remember Kennedy being killed. I was a very young, I was an ex-fetus at the time. Remember that? You know, you, if any of you have a problem with being a fetus after the fact, well, you can look at me as being the survivor. I am an ex-fetus, and look at me. I survived. You can too. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know my favorite. You know where my rules of life come from? Monty Python. Tom says there's a Jesus coming across the Texas-Mexico border by the thousands. Yeah, there'll be second comings of Jesus all the way into for there'll be many more Jesuses joining the Jesus naming Facebook group. The the Facebook group. My name is Jesus. It's full of Mexicans. The thing about the Mexicans, the thing about the Mexicans and Jesus is that in Mexico, everybody with the name Jesus, they have it as a first name. Jesus Gonzalez, Jesus whatever. But in Brazil, and I know one particular instance of this, in Brazil, people have the last name Jesus. So the one that I know is Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel's his first name, Jesus is his last name. So, and that's the first one I've ever come across doesn't have Jesus as a first name. Gabriel Jesus. I think he's Brazilian. Fun fact. Very fun fact. Right. Let's stick to these to the chats here. Shako, yeah, Monty Python, eh? Yeah, Monty Python was my my introduction to life. I thought life was incomprehensible. What and why and how and who and all these questions you have when you're I was 12, 13, something like that. And then I saw Monty Python for the first time. Well, that sealed the deal for me. You can't ever take life seriously and always look on the bright side of life. Dee-doo, 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 dee-doo. Always look on the bright side of life. And you know the rest. Anything, any updates? No. Well, why don't we look for some more shocking stories from the internet? I don't want to say this out loud because YouTube has their community guidelines, so you'll have to read this. Okay. Looking at the headlines here. Oh, this is interesting. Joel Osteen tests negative for Christianity. You know who Joel Osteen is? He's a con man from the United States of assholes. Oh, sorry, the United States of America, which contains assholes, like Joel Osteen, for example. So let's see what's going on here. This comes out of Houston, Texas. This is scary. Scary true, it must be. Megachurch minister and multimillionaire Joel Osteen tested negative for Christianity early this morning. The random blood test showed the man, who made a fortune on the prosperity gospel, is, in fact, not a Christian. This new blood test doomed Joel Osteen. The new method for determining whether or not Jesus Christ the Messiah lives in a person's heart was recently developed at Miskatonic University. The test looks for evidence that the second person of the Christian Trinity has taken up residence in the muscle that pumps vital blood throughout the body. Blood tests are nothing new. They can be utilized to screen for a variety of conditions. Healthline.com lists several of them: diabetes, HIV, anemia, cancer, coronary heart disease. Professor Andrew Kennard created the procedure. He used pre-existing technology in his search how to gauge whether someone is a real Christian or just faking it for the money. Different illnesses leave different biochemical markers in the blood. For example, a certain enzyme is detected when there is liver disease present. Jesus leaves a similar trail, he said. Surprising revelations? Church elders surprised Osteen with a random blood test minutes before breakfast. The millionaire minister started to object to the measure. However, his latest contract specifically states that he is subject to random drug tests, and under Texas law, this health check for Jesus qualifies. Many of his flock were shocked by the results. Most who are acquainted with his work are not shocked by the results. While the procedure showed that Joel Osteen has 0% of Jesus in his system, there are other conditions living in him. The blood test shows that while Osteen is not a Christian, he is positive for predatory capitalism. Anonymous sources at the lab that tested his blood state they've never seen someone who tested so high. The average American billionaire, like Elon Musk, for example, has approximately 230 milligrams of the genetic marker for toxic capitalism. Joel Osteen has 666 milligrams. Osteen's future. Surprisingly, the man who tested negative for Christianity is still the minister of Lakewood Church. His followers are still supporting the man, even though he cares a lot more for money than for Christ. I'm hoping to learn how to swindle people just like Joel, one parishioner said. The man is an inspiration. Indeed, indeed. Is Christianity a fascist ideology? Is Christianity a fascist ideology? Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let me get into that in a minute. How much of a reading time? 5 minutes, okay. But let's check in with BBC. See? Nothing. No updates. Ah, shit. They updated over here. The 10 hours of oxygen. Oh my God. This sucks. Oh man. This is not nice. I don't like that. There's the updated thumbnail. Sure, I like that. this is going to be difficult to read now because with less than 10 hours of oxygen left, and look what they have got to. Just look at this. Rescuers are now searching a subsurface area approximately 2.5 miles deep to find the missing Titan. It's a harsh and unforgiving environment, more similar to outer space than life on Earth. The Titanic lies within a region called the Midnight Zone, known for its freezing temperatures and perpetual darkness. People who have taken part in previous expeditions on the Titan have described descending for more than 2 hours in pitch black conditions before finally hitting the ocean floor suddenly. The submersible's lights offer it a limited line of sight, but nothing beyond a few meters. First responders will now have to battle these conditions as the search continues. Oh boy, I gotta breathe it in there, man. Shit. Yeah, let me make it slow. Less than 10 hours of oxygen left. You know, you know, Adam. Oh, sorry, Shako. The fjords. It's from the parrot. Remember the parrot skit? It's a dead parrot. No, it's sleeping. No, it's not. It's pining for the fjords. It's what's going on. It's a Norwegian plumage parrot or something. I should. I wish I could play it. You know that sketch right now, the parrot sketch, without getting my whole channel taken down with a copyright strike. But I can't. I almost feel like I've got no energy because I know this thing's imploded. You know this thing's imploded. I think yeah I would assume. But everybody out there who is looking for this ship, who is a professional, who is in the business of naval anything, even in the business of the sonar and the communications and everything, they know that this thing is gone. If it's a 2-hour dive, then it's got to be close to a 2-hour ascent. If descent is 2 hours, then ascent has to be around the same. Unless it gets hooked up to unless it gets hooked up to a rover that can. First, they got to find it, and then if they can hook it up to a rover that can, take an hour instead of 2 hours to get to the top, maybe then. But less than 10 hours of oxygen left, and they're potentially at the beginning of a 2-hour trip to the top, with 10 hours of oxygen left. So if they're not found in the next 8 hours, or what's left of them is not found in the next 8 hours, they will not have enough oxygen to make it to the top if they are found in if they are found and they only have an hour left of oxygen, let's say, they still won't get to the top because things that they've got to have to be tethered, and everything has to be in place, so nothing becomes tangled, and I think they're gone. But no one is mentioning implosion much. I wonder why. Why am I sticking with the BBC? Is that what you asked me? Because they're as good as any for live coverage of what's going on. I can go to CBC, and let's do that. Let's go to the CBC. My trusted CBC News. Let's go there. So they're still talking about sounds. Your questions about the... Ooh, I want to know if anybody's asked questions. Could the Titan be on the... You see, this is from 9 hours ago. Updated 9 hours ago. So let's have a quick peruse. I'm looking for the question that what happens if it implodes? Now it takes 2.5 hours to reach the Titanic wreckage. Oh my God. I thought it was 2 hours. Now it's 2.5. It's just a giant tube that they drop in the water and it sinks all the way down. The Titan drifted as it descended due to underwater current, so it doesn't plunge straight down. It kind of goes whatever, it goes with the current. Could it already be on the surface? Alright, listen to this. The Titan has 7 different return to the surface backup systems that allow it to float back up to the surface, according to David Pogue, a CBS News correspondent, who also traveled on the Titan last year. So there is a chance the submersible is bobbing somewhere on the remote Atlantic Ocean. He said those include sandbags and lead pipes that can drop off, thrusters, and an air balloon. But he said there's also a time release system that sends the submersible back to the surface after a number of hours, even if everybody on board is unconscious. That's important, isn't it? Air crews have searched an area spanning about 26,000 square kilometers so far, looking for a white submersible that is 6.7 meters long and 2.8 meters wide. If the Titan is on the surface, the crew and passengers would not be able to escape the capsule because it is bolted shut from the outside, Pogue explained, meaning the oxygen supply remains limited, just as it would in the depths of the ocean. I brought this up last time, didn't I? If the thing is on the ocean, is on the surface, can they access fresh air? It seems to be the answer to that seems to be no. How much oxygen may be left on board? A US Coast Guard official told BBC News Wednesday there is likely less than 20 hours left in the Titan's estimated 96-hour oxygen supply, which includes oxygen tanks and equipment known as carbon dioxide scrubbers to absorb the CO2 exhaled by the passengers inside the confined space. David Marquette, a former U.S. Navy submarine commander, told CBS News the Titan's passengers would need to remain calm and control their breathing to stretch that oxygen supply as long as possible. Why can't GPS find it? Unlike sound that can be picked up on sonar equipment, global positioning systems, GPS technology, relies on radio waves which don't travel well through water in general, let alone at such great depths. The Titan, before it disappeared, communicated with its mothership, the Polar Prince, via text-like messages and pings from an acoustic beacon. Can banging sounds help locate it? Search vessels with remotely controlled vehicles, ROVs, were repositioned after the Canadian P-3 aircraft deployed what are known as sonar buoys that picked up the underwater sounds. While sonar equipment can pick up sounds, it can be tricky to determine the source of noise, said Rear Admiral John Marger of the U.S. Coast Guard. You have to remember that it's the wreck site of the Titanic, so there is a lot of metal and different objects around the site, he told CBS Mornings on Wednesday. Rolling Stone reported Wednesday that internal U.S. Department of Homeland Security emails indicated banging detected by the Canadian P-3 surveillance aircraft occurred in half-hour intervals. The P-3 heard banging sounds in the area every 30 minutes. 4 hours later, additional sonar was deployed and banging was still heard. So that kills the thing imploded hypothesis, right? If that's what they heard every 30 minutes, then that sort of kills the implosion theory. Why wasn't it tethered to its mothership? Some manned submersibles are tethered to a larger vessel or platform on the ocean surface, but the Titan was not. In order for a vehicle to reach the Titanic wreck and maneuver around, you would need 5,000 or 6,000 meters of cable for a vehicle to reach that depth and maneuver around, explained British oceanographer Simon Boxall. You also need the equipment to accommodate and deploy such a long and heavy cable, he said. He explained research vessels, for example, that work with deep water remotely operated vehicles are actually built around a large winch. The Titanic was transported nearly 700 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland by the Canadian research vessel Polar Prince, a former Coast Guard Arctic icebreaker that is now privately owned. Images of the vessel do not appear to show such equipment on board. So there's a video here, what type of equipment is helping search for the Titan? And there's a video here, Every Noise Matters, and there's a video here about sonar buoy deployment. I don't think we can watch that. What about this? How the Titan could have, well, 2 days ago, how cruise could have survived. That's old news that we've seen. Yeah. That's the CBC. Let's get back to the BBC. To BBC. Okay. Let's see. What are they saying now? Less than 10 hours. They're still on the 10 hours. And it's been 1 hour and 2 minutes since the last post by BBC Live. Things are not looking good. Actually, you know, the fact that things are not looking good, be that as it may, I'm suggesting that just as I was about to suggest something, a post came up. Past passenger recalls losing communications on Titan. Alan Estrada, who had been on a previous expedition, describes the protocol in place in the event communications are lost. Well, why don't we just listen? Why don't we just listen?
Oigan, chicos,
lo que nos pasó a nosotros es que si pierdes comunicación, hay un lapso de tiempo de tolerancia en el cual si esa comunicación no se recupera, sí o sí hay que abortar la misión. Lo pueden ver de hecho en mis videos. Nosotros perdimos comunicación más o menos a los 1000 y tantos metros, si no me equivoco. Pasó el tiempo de tolerancia y estábamos ya abortando la misión. De hecho, arrojamos el primero de los lastres y justo en ese momento recuperamos comunicación y ya no la perdimos, y fue por eso que pudimos hacer el descenso.
Well, I didn't really understand what he said, and I wasn't reading that fast, so I didn't understand what he said. I mean, let's be frank here, Frank. I didn't understand what he said. So it doesn't look like anyone's really too eager to get news out to us. So yeah, let's focus on the is Christianity a fascist ideology? What do you think? Well, let's see. Is Christianity a fascist ideology? Jonathan M.S. Pierce wrote this one. But there's a subheading here, subtitle. This is another guest article from a tippling philosopher contributor, David Austin, in Australia. So the tippling philosopher is a group of people who meet in a pub, which I think is called the Tippling Pub. Resist Christian fascism. Who's with me? Yeah! Yeah! Resist Christian fascism. Oh yeah, but hold on a second. There is no more Christian fascism, because didn't I just read an article not that long ago that Jesus was killed? The second coming of Jesus was killed by the Israelis in Palestine. How history can change by the twitch of a finger. But anyway, let's get back to this. Okay. All right. Let's read it this way. Can you see it? So Christian nationalism, he writes, is an idea that is becoming a growing specter in the political landscape around the world. Does Christianity in general, or certain manifestations of it, have characteristics of fascism? Now, please understand that I am not labeling all Christians as fascists. Instead, I am comparing the structure of the Christian church and its ideology with that of fascist regimes. My interest in the subject was piqued by a short video by Brian Dalton, aka Mr. Deity, entitled Christofascism, where he made the offhand comment, that Christianity was a fascist enterprise. I'm just trying to make sure that the screen reflects what I'm reading. Okay. So Christofascism, where he made the offhand comment that Christianity was a fascist enterprise. I took this to be a rhetorical remark and not to be taken too seriously, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made, as I shall try to explain. By definition, Christianity is inherently a conservative ideology based on 2 millennia of tradition, and thus slow to change, yet it has characteristics that can align with more far-right ideologies that have emerged in the 20th century. Let me now do some comparisons. Hierarchies. Both have a very formal hierarchy with a supreme leader. For example, an Il Duce in Italy and Der Führer in Germany during World War II, compared with a pope in Catholicism and the Archbishop of Canterbury for the Anglican Church. There follows cardinals, archbishops, bishops, priests, and deacons in Catholicism, and archbishops, bishops, deacons, vicars, rectors, and so on in the Anglican tradition. I emphasize that I am equating Benito Mussolini Il Duce in Italy and Adolf Hitler der Führer in Germany to the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury, but just pointing out the formal structure that Christianity and fascist regimes share. So he's comparing Hitler and Mussolini to the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury regarding this formal structure. In recent times in the USA, there seems to be a supreme leader adopted by evangelical Christians in the form of Donald Trump. It was disturbing to see Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol building on January the 6th, 2021, carrying flags with the names of Jesus and Trump, with some carrying crosses and some holding prayers in the Capitol building. There were calls for the execution of the then Vice President Mike Pence and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. Authoritarian. Both Christianity and fascism are authoritarian in nature, i.e., they are non-democratic. The fascist governments in both Italy and Germany made the laws and expected every citizen to follow them. Non-compliance was treated very aggressively, and such behavior was put down forcibly. In the Catholic Church, the Pope sets down the rules by which Catholics must adhere, and non-compliance can result in excommunication. The Anglican Church has synods where doctrine is established and compliance is expected from the church hierarchy and the congregations at large. Particularly in the USA, many evangelical Christians believe that the country is a Christian nation and should eventually become a Christian theocracy. There seems to be the feeling amongst such evangelicals that WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, have a, quote, God-given right to govern. Many subscribe to the Dominion 7 Mountain Mandate, where they believe that Christians should control 7 spheres of a community, namely family, religion, education, media, entertainment, business, and government. Lauren Boebert stated the following in an address to a congregation in Colorado. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not meant to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk. And that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what they say it does, says Lauren Boebert. This is particularly shocking, as Lauren Boebert is not just some random Christian, but a sitting member of the U.S. Congress. Furthermore, this directly contradicts the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which she has sworn an oath to uphold. Just as disturbing are pastors such as Greg Locke, who maintains you cannot be a Christian and vote to Democrat. Tribalism. Both Christianity and fascism are essentially tribal, by which I mean there is an us and them mentality. So if you're not part of the tribe, you are looked upon as an outsider and treated with suspicion and sometimes downright hostility. Nationalism. Building on the notion of tribalism and extending it to national borders, we have the idea of nationalism. Nationalism was a big part of the Nazi creed. Sorry, I'm going to read that again. Nationalism was a big part of the Nazi creed and promoted the purity of the German race. This promoted the view that other nationalities and races were inferior and needing to be under the guidance of their regime. Christianity, as seen in the USA, especially amongst evangelical Christians, can be fiercely nationalistic. Christian nationalism is a growing threat to those who value secular ideals. Many who advocate for Christian nationalism are anti-immigration. Cults. Both fascism and Christianity have the tendency to become cults and lead some to do whatever is necessary to further the ideals of their ideology. With Christianity, this is exemplified by Jesus, supposedly stating, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple." As quoted from Luke, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verse 26. What? I mean, like what? What is this? Is this like from the Bible? Seriously? Whoever comes to me, I'm going to highlight it. Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even life itself, cannot be my disciple. What the fuck kind of psychopathic gobbledygook mumbo jumbo is this? Anyway, in other words, one's loyalty and obedience. Let me go back to that other one. One's loyalty and obedience are owed exclusively to your leader, even to the extent of disowning your family. That is so fucked up. That is very, very fucked up. This cult-like mentality, in extreme cases, can lead people to carry out atrocities that, under normal circumstances, they would find abhorrent. In Nazi Germany, the Holocaust claimed the lives of 6 million Jews. However, it must be remembered that these killings were not committed by Adolf Hitler personally, but were carried out by ordinary Germans, many of whom were Lutherans or Catholics. In 1933, the Vatican signed a concordat with Hitler that removed opposition to the Nazi Party in return for control of religious affairs in Germany. What? The Vatican signed in 1933 a concordat with Hitler that removed Catholic opposition to the Nazi Party in return for control of religious affairs in Germany. It is presumed that the Catholic Church saw the Nazi Party as a bulwark against the godless communists. You saw it here. You read it right here. The Catholics and the Nazis were partners. So this is what they agreed with the Catholic, between the Catholic Church and the Nazis in 1933. I didn't know this. The Vatican and the Nazis agreed that the Catholic Church would not oppose the Nazi Party, and in return, the Catholic Church will have full control of religious affairs in Germany. So during the Second World War, in Germany, in German-controlled areas, the Vatican had full control of religious affairs in Germany. But they weren't allowed to oppose the government. So we must conclude that the Catholic Church knew exactly what was happening in Germany with the extermination of the Jews program. They knew exactly about it, but they knew everything about it, but they couldn't say anything because of their agreement to not oppose the German government. How fucked up is that? 6 million Jews can say, thank you, the Catholic Church, for killing me. 6 million. Okay, all right, let's move on. So Christians throughout the ages have committed many atrocities in the name of their religion. For example, the Crusades, the burning of witches, the slaughter of Incas in South America, and so on. Tons of stuff. There seems to be no limit as to what excesses Christians, and indeed many religious adherents, will undertake if they believe they are doing God's work. As Steven Weinberg previously opined, with or without religion, good people can behave well and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion. Propaganda. Propaganda plays a big part in fascist and Christian protective strategies. The Nazi regime in particular was very successful in this area, managing to convince many Germans that Jews were disloyal to the German culture and even portrayed them as subhuman through the pulpit of from the pulpits of the Catholic Church, no doubt. Whilst not so vitriolic, Christianity uses propaganda by way of apologetics to shore up the edifice that Christianity is a fact-based religion and worthy of intellectual consideration. But many forms of Christian propaganda, utilizing often cherry-picked verse and chapter of the Bible, are used to support all the many ideas listed above. Just to reiterate, I am, of course, not suggesting that all Christians are fascists. Rather, I am pointing out some worrying similarities that seem evident in both worldviews, and concerningly, in recent times, especially in the USA. The line between Christianity and fascism has become just a little blurred. A little bit about the author, David Austin. He is a retired Englishman now living in Australia. He is a lifelong atheist who moved from being more of an atheist when he was a guest in a church and was harangued by the pastor. He felt he needed to understand the arguments concerned that he has now studied at great length. As a former senior electronics engineer working mostly in digital technology with a Bachelor of Technology degree and working in computing for so long, logic is important to his work. He is passionate about church and state separation and is active in secular groups to try to reduce the negative influence of religion in society. I say, yay, you. Well done. Well fucking done, dude. Nice work. If you would like me to quickly jump to the BBC, you'll see that the last post was about a half an hour ago. So it looks like this is kind of winding down to nothing at the end of the day. Tomorrow morning I'll pick it up and I'm sure it'll be more frantic, or we'll just have more news about what's going on. But less than 10 hours of oxygen left at this point. I'm very sad to say, actually, that unfortunately, I think that the vessel is lost forever, whether through implosion or through other mechanical malfunction. So yeah, the search continues, and all we really can do is wait. I'll see you. I'll see you in a bit.